Whiff's original name was Aerolite, and he worked for the Northeastern Railway escorting the mechanical engineer in a saloon coach. However, by 1905, Aerolite was considered too out of date, even after his multiple rebuilds had strayed him far away from his 1869 design. The NER did not want a non-standard locomotive, so withdrew him. Aerolite was facing the end of the line when the most unlikely man saved him. William Waldegrave Palmer, First Lord of the Admiralty, bought Aerolite in 1905, hoping to bring him to South Africa to work on the railways there. However, he never got the chance, as Palmer left office only a month after purchasing Aerolite. With no hope of getting him to South Africa, Palmer leased his engine to the newly formed Killaban Short Line, and this is where the real story begins. The Killaban Short Line, KSL, was built to run trains of iron ore from the Boxheath ore mine to the town of Kildane. At this time, Kildane was a pretty important mill town, exporting processed iron from its foundry. The processed iron would then be transported down to Killaban Pier before being transported by sea. The line was still under construction when Aerolite arrived at the tiny pier at Killaban in August of 1905. He was immediately put to work digging a tunnel on the outskirts of town. Aerolite struggled as he was only used to light passenger work before this, but soon got a handle of freight work. The KSL would operate peacefully for about 9 years, even having a small passenger service down to meet the ferry bound for Kirk Ronan. In 1911, a waste dump was built along the spur line to the quarry. Waste from the Boxheath mine, Killaban, Kildane, and even as far away as Peel Godred was disposed of here. Aerolite would haul daily trains of rubbish down from Kildane. This is where he gained his nickname Whiff. Soon, the rubbish company, Thompson Langley Brothers Disposal, outsized the spur line that it had been built on. In 1914, the Northwestern Railway was formed. The entire middle of Sodor between the W&S and S&M was completely uncharted by railways. Well, almost, as the KSL sat dug into the South Ridge at Kildane. It was decided that the NWR would take charge of the Kildane section of the line and its tunnel, and a junction would be built connecting the remainder of the KSL to the new Northwestern Railway. The KSL protested, but there was very little that they could do. It didn't help that the ore at the mine was drying up rapidly, and with little else to rely on, the KSL needed the sale of their northern section to keep going. The mine's complete closure was postponed until after the war, but in 1919 it finally happened. Less than 2 months later, the line to the Killaban Pier was also abandoned, ending the Killaban Short Line. The remainder of the tracks were sold directly to TLB, who would operate it as an industrial line for decades. The story of the Killaban Short Line ends in 1919, but the line's runner Whiff continued on. He ran the new waste dump line for the next 11 years, becoming a staple of the island of Sodor's rail network. He loved his work and often strayed as far as Tidmouth to pick up rubbish. However, as the Great Depression gripped the island, in 1930 the TLB decided not to renew Whiff's lease, as he was still owned by Lord Palmer. They bought a cheaper engine from the Fat Controller, who was offloading his older engines. Benson would continue the line on as Whiff's owner found new work for him. Whiff would find new work under the LMS, who decided to loan engines out to operate Barrow Yards. Whiff would work alongside a battery locomotive named Stafford. This is where Whiff would be for the next 2 decades before being bought by the Earl of Sodor, Robert Normanby, in 1956. He and Stafford would reunite and run the Earl's Estate Railway to Normanby, marking the return of Whiff to Sodor's rails.